what a great way to introduce our theme, the soul of the industry. Like, they get right on. What's so great about that company is that they started from something that resonated deep with them, and that's how you create something that has longevity. So I definitely will be taking notes, so if you guys have your iPhones, get that note that out. But without further ado, our next presenter is pretty cool. I barely met her recently, but I have a thing for stalking people. And I looked at her Instagram and it's so cool. She's super groovy, and that's the most appropriate word that I got from it. But without further ado, we have Angel with Ruby Doobie.
Hi everyone. My name is Angel Teger, and I'm the creator and founder of Ruby Doobie, Exquisite Cannabis Edibles. And I've probably been serving Los Angeles area collective since 2009. The soul of the industry is a great topic, and I'm so excited to be part of this evening. Thank you, Andrea, for inviting me to speak. She asked me to think about my passion and how does it fuel my product and my business, and I've been thinking about that for long and hard ever since we talked. And I can break it down to, I've been searching for simplicity in my life. And it sounds a little odd with the state of the industry right now to say that I wanted a simpler life and ended up in the cannabis industry. But let me explain. Before starting Ruby Doobie, I did a few things. I managed law firms. I owned and operated a couple of restaurants in Santa Monica, that is. And then I was the chief of staff at the X Foundation up until 2008 when I left there. So about 2004, 2005, I started getting disillusioned, I guess you could say, with the corporate environment. And I really wanted to change. I was questioning the whole consumer mentality. I wanted to have more time with my family, cook some meals, read a book, plant a garden, you know, stop and smell the flowers. I just felt like it wasn't happening for me. I can tell that you can relate. You know, I also wanted to get to know who my neighbors were and build community. In LA, it's so common that you don't even know who lives right next door. So on top of that, I was having really bad migraines. I've always suffered from migraines for decades, but around this time, they were getting severe and more frequent to the point where I could be down for a week, vomiting, nausea, you know, sensitivity to light and sound. I could just sit in a dark room with a wet towel over my head, and that was it. That's all I could do for days. And so that was happening once or twice a month. And in anticipating a migraine, I would get these panic attacks because I knew that the next few days were gone. My life was not my own. So add the anxiety, the panic, throw depression on top of that because these things were getting out of control. And I turned to traditional Western medicine, thinking that was the way to do it. And I tried all these different prescription drugs, pharmaceuticals that were very, very hard on my system, made me feel worse oftentimes, or would just knock me out. And I was just missing out on my life. So I turned to cannabis, and cannabis really helps with my migraines. It helps reduce the anxiety, so when I feel the symptoms coming on, I don't spiral down and just make it worse, you know, and it controls the nausea. It also helps reduce the frequency, the intensity, and the duration of my migraines. I mean, I still get them, but I can manage them. I can live with them with the help of cannabis. And I just want to pause right here and say that I have also been an experienced recreational user for many years. I believe that cannabis helps with relaxation, and I know it helps reduce anxiety and stress. It stimulates creativity, enhances human sexual connection. It shifts your perspective ever so slightly so you can get those big idea moments. You know, it's called hyperpriming. I'm sure you've heard of that term. So I got to this point where getting into cannabis kind of fit into the bigger picture that I had for simplifying my life. I was passionate about it. I believe in this plant. It has helped me personally. And it just seemed clear, you know, to follow my passion, and that would be the simpler life. So I got involved. I started volunteering for a cannabis physician so I could learn as much as possible. I learned about the endocannabinoid system. I learned about CBD. I met patients who were struggling and finding relief with cannabis and hearing their stories and how are you using it and how is it helping you. It was just a great learning experience. I also started researching and reading as much as I could about the history of cannabis, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I hadn't thought about before. You know, I enjoyed it recreationally. I never really thought about what does it mean to call it a medicine, you know? And the more I read, the more I learned about the war on drugs and what a failure that is and how it negatively impacts certain communities of color, you know? And the whole prison for profit system and how it feeds into that, and Big Pharma, how they're making so much money off of prescribing lethal drugs to us and advertising it every day on TV. So I just got really worked up about the decades of misinformation and deception to perpetuate this stigma of evil weed, and I wanted to be a part of the solution. So what can I do? I'm a mom with 2 children. I can bake, and baking became my way to get involved, and that's when Ruby Doobie was born. My mission is to provide my fellow medical marijuana patients with fresh, delicious edibles that are safe, potent, and consistent. And you know, my philosophy with Ruby Doobie is the same, simplicity. I have simple, familiar recipes: chocolate chip cookies, lemon bars, cakes, brownies. I make my own butter and oil extractions, and I do this slowly and lovingly in a kitchen. 3 days to make a batch of butter. So I guess what I'm saying is my real goal is not just to bake, but to change hearts and minds. And I feel that the key to ending the stigma is to normalize cannabis and put yourself out there as an example of people that aren't your typical stoner, you know? I mean, I kind of hate the stereotypical stoner culture, because I don't identify with that. I know a lot of people don't. And I think that if the more of us that come out and say, I use cannabis, I'm normal, whatever that is, and I'm a highly functioning, I prefer highly functioning to stoner any day, member of society. And I think speaking up and putting yourselves out there is a big part of that. And for me, baking is my way of doing that. Last year, I also did an article that was in BuzzFeed. I did a whole Thanksgiving meal where every dish was infused. And I have my face out there holding a cornucopia of bud, proudly with a smile on my face. Woo. So it's out there. And I think that a sweet, delicious edible is a perfect way to start a conversation with someone. People are thrilled to hear what I do, interested in hearing what I do, happy to talk to me, and boy, can I talk about it. I mean, I will tell them. It was really hard for me to shrink this down to 7 minutes. So, anyways, where was I? So now I'm about 10 years into my search for a simpler life. And with the cannabis industry, the way it is, so many gray areas, it's far from simple. But the road to simplicity is sometimes complicated. My passion for this plant remains the same. I bake with that same passion. There's love in everything that I make. It's important to me to be a part of this community and see it grow. And I see changes in the industry with dosages getting higher and more processes being added. You know, I know adding value to something is the way it's capitalism. You know, that's how you make money. You take it, you change it, you sell it. I understand that, but I hope that the industry will allow for people who are cottage industry, really passionate about the craft, I personally am not looking to take over the market, but I'm passionate about what I do. I'm sticking with simple. In my life, and in my approach to life, and in my business. Simply prepared, simply delicious. That's what I feel Ruby Doobie symbolizes. And to wrap things up, I would like to see the future of cannabis really fit into a bigger picture of self-sufficiency. Growing your own food, growing your own medicine, to me, is really taking back power. It's a way that we can have lesser impact on the environment. And it's a way that we can grow community. So I'm not really for the consumer-driven mentality. I'm not really here to pitch you on Ruby Doobie, but I do have a vision that I'd like to share with you. Maybe a few years down the road, see me on a nice farmhouse bed and breakfast with some, fruit orchard and organic vegetables growing, some chickens and bees, some cannabis growing, me making some edibles in the kitchen. That is the future that I see. And I know it's not simple, but I hope someday you will join me.